Hello, everybody. This is Archana here. Welcome to the Read, Write, Inspire Classics Book Club. Let me share the screen and we can begin. Okay. So the book we are discussing today is Fathers and Sons by Ivan Turgenev. I'm going to be bad with all the names, I think, today. So please excuse me. Uh, let's see a little bit about the author and then his works, his initial writing career, and then about the book Fathers and Sons, his relationship with other authors, his writing style, some themes from the book, discussion points, and quotes. So Ivan was born into the Russian noble class. His father was a poor cavalry officer, but his mother was a massive heiress with a huge estate and with about 5,000 serfs. But his mother had the reputation of being a very harsh mistress over her serfs, and she would give severe corporal punishment for even the slightest of mistakes. And this created in Ivan a deep revulsion against the kind of behavior that the landlords showed towards these serfs. And he didn't have a sense of belonging with his social background. He felt estranged from it. So all this actually translated into his writing, and all his life he would argue against serfdom, which is a form of human slavery. So his livelihood and material welfare depended to a large extent on the money which was brought in by the family estate. And his mother and was well aware that he was dependent on this, and she used that as a way of controlling Ivan. And she attempted to use this income to control his actions and his opinions. The result was that he had a very unpleasant family situation. His father was not much involved in his life, and his mother was extremely controlling. This is the reason why most of the characters in his novels, all these strong characters in his novels, are usually women. In his early writing career, he started writing a lot of stories about his hunting expeditions, and they were published under the title Notes of a Hunter. But once the stories were published, it was very clear that this was much more than just hunting expeditions. He had portrayed a lot about the miserable condition of the Russian serfs who were still languishing in slavery at that time. And the book brought him a lot of fame, and it played a significant role in preparing the Russian public opinion for the grand emancipation of 1861, which was the when the legal laws were passed and there was an official end of serfdom in Russia. As his reputation continued to grow in the 1860s, he was appreciated by most of his friends and colleagues in the West, especially Gustav Flaubert and Henry James, and there were many others also. Um, and they all acclaimed that he was the best of Russian writers. So, for at least a generation, he was considered as the outstanding representative of Russian literature. And, to his credit, Turgenev didn't just stop with that. He did try to popularize the works of his Russian contemporaries, that is Pushkin and Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. He appreciated them and tried to popularize their works in the West too. First Love was one of his earliest novellas. In fact, his most impressive writing appears in the shorter works like short stories and novellas. And it's generally said he's not very good in the development of character. So in the shorter works, he's done a much better role, and where there is not necessary that character needs to be developed much. So his first novel, most impressive novella of the 1860, was First Love. And it was a novel about adolescent passion and about a boy falling in love with a woman who his father falls in love too. So it's a complicated story. But many of the themes and the problems which are shown in the book First Love actually find a more mature representation in fathers and sons. So in Turgenev's writing, his had this, the strong will is shown, that the strong will is exhibited usually by the women characters. And his male characters, or at least those who are Russian, are, give these wonderful speeches and powerful speeches and all this. However, always he shows that when it comes to action, his male characters fail. So he shows this same thing in First Love, and he shows the same kind of behavior in Fathers and Sons. So he says that, most this kind of duality in character, where they are able to make those strong, powerful speeches, but actually when it comes to action, they don't really do anything, is something which is a common strain which runs among all of the characters usually that he writes about in fiction. Fathers and Sons was his most prominent novel. It's an 1862 novel published in Moscow. It's one of the most acclaimed Russian novels of the 19th century. In fact, it was the first Russian work to gain prominence in the Western world. Eventually, it gained the approval of well-established novelists like Gustave Flaubert, Guy de Maupassant, Henry James, etc. In fact, the Bolshevik revolutionary Vladimir Bazarov, he adopted his name Bazarov from the character of Bazarov in this novel. So something a little to note about Russian names in this book is that the middle names of all the male characters end in "vich", and of all the female characters end in "ovna". So "vich" basically means son of so-and-so, and "ovna" also means the same thing, daughter of so-and-so. So Nikolai's father is named Petro. So both Pavel and Nikolai both have the name Petrovich for their middle name. So this middle name is a usual patronymic. It's a name which is based on their father's name. And all the Russian names have three names, and they are called using any one or a combination of more. I just wanted to share this with you. This is something I came across when I was reading about Russian names today. Okay. Another interesting aspect of Ivan is that his relationship with the other writers was not so smooth. So with Dostoevsky, what happened was Dostoevsky initially admired Turgenev's work. But then Turgenev, he made the mistake of lending Dostoevsky money. Dostoevsky actually desperately needed money. So, but he did not, I don't think he asked Turgenev for it. But Turgenev just knew that he needed money, so he lent him the money. But however, this generosity was mistaken by Dostoevsky, because he felt that Turgenev looked down on him. The result was that Dostoevsky's novel, The Possessed, which was about an anti-revolutionary novel, has this character, called Karmazinov. And this character is actually based on Turgenev, and Dostoevsky has explicitly mentioned about this in many places, that this character is based on Turgenev. And Turgenev is pictured as a very weak, fading writer in the book, who's desperately pandering to the Russian radicals, which was a very, very, probably a sad and unjust way of depiction of Turgenev. But the situation actually was further aggravated by many ironic statements Turgenev made about the state of the Tsarist Russia and its backwardness. And Dostoevsky found them deeply insulting. And again, his relationships with Tolstoy was also not much easier. In a discussion between them, Tolstoy caused anger to flare by a depreciating remark about some charitable actions described by Turgenev. And these hot words, in fact, led to a challenge to a duel. Tolstoy agreed, and on the condition that the weapons be rifles and not pistols. But thankfully, Turgenev actually wisely managed to avoid this duel. But Tolstoy spread the word that Turgenev is a coward, and that's why he's avoiding, this duel or something like this. And that again strained the relationships between them. Okay, some years later, when Tolstoy was in a very preaching mode, and he started, he started touring and giving a lot of speeches and all that time. That time he wrote to Turgenev in France, and he urged for a reconciliation. Finally, they had a friendly visit. It said that they had a friendly visit in Tolstoy's estate, and everything was okay and all. And later they entered into a game of checkers, and Turgenev won. So once again, their relationship got sour after that. So later, it said that when he was on his deathbed, he wrote a moving letter to Tolstoy, and he urged him that he should continue writing and using his great talent for the sake of Russia's welfare. So that's how his relationship with Tolstoy ends. And so let's see a little bit about the writing style of Fathers and Sons. So in Fathers and Sons, right from the first chapter itself, you realize that suddenly the author interrupts the narrative and he addresses the reader directly in order to give us some background information. Now, generally, later realist authors don't enter into the narrative. So they don't come and tell you the backstory directly. They try and weave it into their storytelling itself. Turgenev is considered as a kind of, he's used both the dual technique. So he's used the technique of speaking directly to the reader. And at the same time, he's also used the technique of presenting scenes without any author intrusion also. So he's generally considered as a more realistic and contemporary writer for his time. But he also has used this dual kind of a technique in his writing. And so one of the things about Turgenev is a lot of appreciation for his writing, which he got from the West. So it's said that Turgenev's artistic purity made him a favorite of like-minded novelists of the next generation, such as Henry James, Joseph Conrad, both of whom greatly preferred Turgenev to Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. So James actually wrote 5 critical essays on Turgenev's work, and he claimed that his merit of form is of the first order. He said there's an exquisite delicacy to his work, which makes too many of his rivals appear to hold us in comparison by violent means and introduce us in comparison to vulgar things. So it's generally, Westerners felt that Tolstoy and Dostoevsky's works were more violent and vulgar, while Turgenev's work was more beautiful and delicate, and but still it carried a very valid points. So Vladimir Nabokov, who was notorious for his casual dismissal of many great writers, praised Turgenev's plastic, musical, flowing prose, but he criticized his labored epilogues and his banal handling of plots. Banal handling of plots, I think definitely all those, like if you've read Fathers and Sons, you will realize it. There's hardly any plot over there. So Nabokov stated that Turgenev is not a great writer, though a pleasant one, and he ranked him 4th among the 19th century Russian prose writers, behind Tolstoy, Gogol, and Anton Chekhov. But still, he actually gave him a place before Dostoevsky. So his idealistic ideas about love, specifically the devotion a wife should show her husband, were cynically referred to by characters in Chekhov, An Anonymous Story. So Chekhov's An Anonymous Story has some talk about Turgenev's work where they are very cynical about his representation of what a wife should, the kind of devotion a wife should show her husband. Isaiah Berlin, who is a Russian-British historian, also acclaimed that Turgenev's commitment to humanism, pluralism, and gradual reform over violent revolution as representing the best aspects of Russian liberalism. Now, one of the reasons for displeasure with Turgenev could be that Turgenev wrote on themes similar to those found in the works of Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, but he did not approve of the religious and moral preoccupations that his 2 great contemporaries brought to their artistic creation. In fact, Turgenev is considered to be an agnostic. Now, this was something that Tolstoy and Dostoevsky did not like. They did not like that he was an agnostic person and he was not religious, and he was not talking about religion and morals in his work. Turgenev was closer in temperament to his friends Gustav Flaubert and Theodor Storm, the North German poet and master of the novella form, who also often dwelt on memories of the past and evoked the beauty of nature. So, apart from fathers and sons, but the most of these other works, like First Love and all, usually are books where someone has a memory of the past, and then they go into the past, and it's like your flashback scenes, and then the whole story is told. So this was a form used by this North German poet too. And he also speaks a lot about the beauty of nature in his works, which was also similar to the Western literature. So his closest literary friend was Gustav Flaubert, with whom he shared similar social and aesthetic ideas. And both of them rejected extremist right and left political views. And they carried a very non-judgmental, although rather pessimistic view of the world. And this was something that, his Russian contemporaries did not like. Leo Tolstoy and Fyodor Dostoevsky were dismayed by Turgenev's seeming preference for Western Europe. They did not like that. So also, Turgenev occasionally visited England, and in 1879, he got the honorary degree of Doctor of Civil Law, which was conferred upon him by the University of Oxford. So all these were other reasons why his Russian contemporaries did not like him. Some of the themes explored over here are one of the most important themes of all of Turgenev's work was the serfdom in Russia, was the relationship between the landowners and the serfs. So in the period where fathers and sons are based, it was published in 1862. In 1861 was when legally serfdom was abolished. So serfdom basically was a similar situation very similar to the black slaves of America. The serfs were very similar to the black slaves, in which they lived completely at the mercy of the wealthy landowner. Only the Russian state and the Russian noblemen had the legal right to own serfs. But in practice, actually, even commercial firms sold Russian serfs as slaves, not only within Russia, but even abroad, especially into Persia and the Ottoman Empire, as students or servants. And these students were servants were actually owned by rich people, sometimes even by rich serfs who were not noblemen at all. So Emperor Nicholas I banned the trade of African slaves in 1842, although there were almost no Russians who participated in slave trade. But Russian serfs were still being sold and bought. Now, in 1862, the serfs were granted complete freedom. But before that time, most of the more advanced landowners and thinkers had voluntarily freed their serfs in the manner that Kirsanov and Bazarov had done in the book. So earlier, a person's wealth was often evaluated in the terms of the number of serfs he owned. And you had the expression like his estate is valued at 200 souls. Souls means actually the serfs. And, it was felt that this term souls itself is a very big satire, because that means you're calling them as Christian soul. It's a baptized property. So you are, you're able to tell that it's a human being. You're able to call them as a soul, but at the same time, it's a personal property for someone. So all these points Turgenev has tried to very subtly bring in about in his writing. In the first chapter, Turgenev refers to Pyotr, who's his father's serf, as one of the new emancipated servants. So Turgenev, one of the few more reasons why he felt more closer to the serfs, in fact, than to his own family, was because when he was a child, a family serf had read to him verses from Rossiad of Mikhail Keresov, who was a very celebrated poet of the 18th century, and had triggered in Turgenev this love for literature. And Turgenev never married, but he had affairs with the family serf, and in fact, one of which resulted in the birth of his illegitimate daughter, Paulinette. Like many of his educated contemporaries, he was particularly opposed to serfdom. He felt a deep revulsion against any torture or abuse of the serfs, and he felt estranged from his social background. He felt more connected to the serfs. So all his life, he would argue against human slavery in whatever way possible. I think let me take a break here, and in case anyone has something to share, maybe you can go ahead. I've been talking continuously and boring you all. So yes, Tulika.
I really don't know what to say. Some of it, I don't know. They talk about fluid prose and all. You said some of the Western people have praised him, but I don't know. Maybe it was the translation that didn't really work for us.
I don't know. So
Um,
I had the feeling. So I think whenever there's something which is in opposition to Russian traditions or Russian systems and appreciation for their value systems or their kind of governance or something,
the way they work, right?
their thoughts, their feelings, whatever,
Mm.
their way of thinking, anything which opposes that, I think used to find a lot of appreciation in the West, which is what I think
Correct.
happened with Turgenev's writing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because
So
he was pro-serf, but the writing-wise, I didn't find it very evolved or anything very captivating about his writing.
yeah, nothing.
I mean, yeah.
I think basically he is a nice person. That's all.
Mm.
Lending money where he didn't need to.
Yeah, true. And
Such-
that only got him in
That's what
trouble.
I'm saying.
Mm,
He's a very nice person with
mm.
a, strong conscience. But beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
And there was this Fenechka, that lady, maybe it's drawn from his own life because he had a daughter with a serf, right? You said?
Correct.
So maybe that character he has picked from his own life.
Yeah.
Nikolai has this
Yeah.
thing for this lady. So
Mm.
some of it was okay. I don't know. I was not very impressed by the writing. And I think my translation was better, was a better version than what Suchi
Yeah.
was reading.
Oh, okay.
I think so. We read different
Mine was
versions.
terrible. Mine was Wordsworth Classics. I don't know who has translated it, but
Is it the black one? The black
no,
cover?
not the black one. Something else. It was.
Mm.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I basically I felt there was no plot, and yeah, so there was
The
nothing.
protagonist was confused. I don't know whether he wanted to talk about nihilism, but then he was not. He was just a, how should I put it? Just a pretend nihilist. Like he wanted to be a nihilist, but he
Yeah,
couldn't be. Like his heart was not in it. He kept
correct,
pushing himself to be something that he actually wasn't.
correct.
And in fact, he pushed Arcady also, because later on, there's a place where when he's talking to Katya and he's saying something as in how beautiful it is, and then he thinks she doesn't laugh at me like Bazarov would have done, because
Ah,
he's appreciating the aesthetics of something.
correct.
So he wasn't a nihilist himself, but
Mm,
he liked to think he was. Actually, that was the biggest drawback, that the main character was not at all likable or identifiable in any way.
correct.
Bazarov.
So that's what is mentioned as one of the problems with his writing, because when it comes to like something like 200 pages, you need to have that development of character, some
Correct.
relatable feeling you should have with that character, which is something he has not been able to pull off in his books. So wherever there is a short story where there is not necessary that there needs to be much of character development, so they say that's where he shines.
Yeah.
Maybe he was not good at studying human beings. That is might be the thing. Maybe he's not good at. He was not good at it.
Correct.
Like so.
True.
I was confused what he wanted to say through Bazarov. I couldn't get that. Like he was propagating nihilism, or was he? What was he trying to say? It didn't really work. It didn't come through at all.
Correct.
And also the topic fathers and sons, that also you don't see the conflict so clearly. Why was the book called Fathers and Sons? Because they needed to be two different strains, clear strains of thought, right?
Correct. It
I'm
wasn't
not,
there. So
yeah, that didn't come through. So
it didn't come through.
hmm.
Neither are they very successful in conveying their feelings or something. And I
Right.
think, so for me personally, what I felt, which I would also, I think comes in this forthcoming slides, is that he hasn't taken any stand, either, for nihilism or against that. Both the ways, I don't feel he has taken a stand, right?
Yeah, actually, if he would have let his character take two different strands, even that would have been fine.
Correct.
Even that is okay, but
Yeah.
the characters also are not able to take a stand either way.
Mm.
I would have been happy with two opposing stands if the author can't make up his mind, right?
Yeah.
But
No,
even the
even with
characters,
Bazarov also, even if
exactly.
he's so strong in what he feels, but then he goes and he, kisses that girl
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
garden,
And
which is completely unimaginable.
yeah, and his reaction after that, he's not at all repentant. He says, "Now I'll be known as a Casanova," or some such thing. He says, very dismissive. Like,
Correct.
if he's like trying out his emotions, exploring his own emotions, even that I would have forgiven. But he's no, I get that. See, there's a point where everybody is confused. I mean,
Yeah.
is it like hormones, or do I really love that whatever that other lady? I get that. He would have been trying to figure out, but it's not even that. It's just so random.
And especially after telling no to someone who was very interested and whom
Yeah,
he was very interested
he
in.
actually, yeah, that is the point. He actually liked her, but he so wanted to. In his head, he wanted to. This is all my own interpretation, of course. In his head, he wanted to be a nihilist so desperately that he
Yeah.
doesn't give in to that
Correct.
feeling of the love or romance or whatever he's feeling for her.
Exactly.
But then on his deathbed, he finally, caves in and he calls for her. So
Yeah.
I didn't understand that at all. It just seemed so pointless
Yeah.
the way he behaves. I don't know.
I don't know.
The others were simpler. Arkady I like, Katya, they're like simple, straightforward characters.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, none of them were likable. I didn't like the father also. I didn't like the son too. I didn't like any of them, in fact.
yeah, see, Nikolai and Arkady, they hardly had any character to leave a big impression on you.
Impression.
So
Correct.
he didn't develop those. The only character he actually developed well was Bazarov, and Bazarov was just not likable.
Correct. True.
Even that girl, Odin. Please tell me what her name was. Odin Stava.
That
That
Odonova or whatever.
yeah, that
Anyway,
Mm.
she was a nice, strong character, but she was also so confused. Does she like
huh.
Bazarov? She wants to marry Arkady. What was I didn't understand where that came from. Like she says right in one place that I'm thinking of marrying him. After which Bazarov goes away. Suchi, does you
Huh.
remember?
Hi, something is just, I am more thinking of what happened to those letters. I wanted to know what about those letters. Was there something there I missed?
He says something, no? He comes to give some letters or something like that.
What was there in that
My
letters?
mother
Nothing.
had written some letters to your mother or something like that.
Yeah, I just thought it was an excuse to come and
Yeah.
meet Katya.
Correct.
Nothing else. There was nothing in those letters.
Okay, nothing in those letters. Fine.
That's what I thought. I thought he just wanted an excuse to come back
Visit
and meet
that
her.
place. Yeah.
Correct. And that those letters kind of
Huh.
served as a reason for him to come.
Mm.
It
Anyway.
was a confusing novel.
Correct. Yeah, true. Okay, let me share the screen. Okay. So another important theme which is explored over here is the Russian nihilist movement. So this was a very it's considered as a philosophical, cultural, and a very revolutionary movement in Russia. But I think the novel has not really done justice to the amount of the real movement which actually happened in Russia. So the novel explores the concept of nihilism, which was a philosophical movement which rejected traditional values, institutions, and beliefs. So Bazarov, one of the central characters, is a nihilist who believes in reason, science, and progress, and he is critical of religion, art, and sentimentality. Nihilism as the symbol of struggle, against all forms of tyranny, hypocrisy, and artificiality, and it's a symbol for individual freedom. The novel represented the movement's unremitting attacks on morality, religion, and traditional society. So this particular movement arose from a generation of young radicals who were disillusioned with the social reformers of the past, and from a growing divide between the old aristocratic intellectuals and the new radical intelligentsia. So this is one of the scenes which talks about, introduces nihilism over here. So Arkady says he's a nihilist, repeated Arkady. A nihilist? Said Nikolai Petrovich. That's from the Latin nihil, nothing, as far as I can judge. The word must mean a man who accepts nothing, say who respects nothing, put in Pavel Petrovich, and he set to work on the butter again. Who regards everything from the critical point of view, observed Arkady. Isn't that just the same thing? Inquired Pavel Petrovich. So no, it's not the same thing. A nihilist is a man who does not bow down before any authority, who does not take any principle on faith, whatever reverence that principle may be enshrined in. So this basically brings us to the next discussion topic, which is the generation gap between the fathers and sons in the book. So the novel depicts the conflict between the older generation of the aristocracy, which is represented by the character of Nikolai Petrovich Kirsanov, and the younger generation, which is represented by Arkady and his friend Bazarov, both of whom are nihilists and they reject the traditional values and customs of their parents. Now, Arkady and his friend Bazarov, who's a very charismatic and cynical medical student, they both represent the new generation of intellectuals. So Bazarov is a nihilist who rejects all traditional values and beliefs, including religion, art, and romantic love. So he's skeptical of the aristocracy and the government, and he advocates for science and progress as the only means of social change. Now, I feel basically that the author has ridiculed both the traditionalist views and the nihilist views. As we had seen before, he did not like extreme right or extreme left political views, and he tried to have a very, he would try to have a very balanced view, but at the same time, a very pessimistic view. I feel that's the same thing that he has done in the book also. So he's ridiculed both the traditionalist views also and the nihilist views also. He's tried to have a very pessimistic view of both the kinds, both the, ways of thinking. So the conflict between the two generations becomes more evident when Bazarov and Arkady visit the estate of Odintsova, a wealthy and an independent woman who becomes the object of their admiration and desire. So while Bazarov is initially dismissive of her, he later becomes attracted to her, and their relationship reveals his emotional vulnerability and the limits of his nihilistic beliefs. So he's, and slowly what happens, Arkady's views on love, art, and social change, all that also starts to change and differ from Bazarov. And later on, Arkady falls in love with a young woman named Katya, who represents the traditional values and virtues of the Russian countryside. So from being a nihilist, now he marries actually a woman who's a complete traditionalist. So the novel portrays the conflict between the old and new generation, as well as the limits of nihilism and radicalism. So while the novel is often seen as a critique of the nihilistic and revolutionary tendencies of the young radicals of Turgenev's time, it also offers a sympathetic portrayal of their search for meaning and purpose in a rapidly changing society. However, on one side, there was the view that this is a critic of the nihilistic and revolutionary tendencies. However, not everybody thought so. When the book was released, it created a furor and controversy in Russia when it was published in 1862. The novel's portrayal of the nihilistic movement and its criticism of traditional Russian values and customs sparked heated debates and outrage among the conservative elements of the society. Many readers, including some prominent literary figures and critics, saw the novel as an attack on traditional Russian society and an endorsement of nihilism and radicalism. Now, this itself could be a reason why the Western authors kind of appreciated Turgenev and took him into their fold. Now, all this interpretation, which was fueled by the character of Bahezrao, who was a nihilist who rejects the traditional values and institutions, and he advocates for radical social and political change. So Turgenev's critics accused him of promoting dangerous ideas that threatened to undermine the moral and social fabric of Russian society. So the controversy surrounding the novel eventually led to Turgenev being labeled a nihilist himself and being exiled from Russia by the government. So that was the controversy behind Turgenev. So another important thing about the book is that it was written during a period of great social and political change happening in the society. So it's taking place against the backdrop of these changes. One was the abolition of serfdom and the freedom given to the serfs, and the middle class, which was Bahezrao kind of people who are the new middle class, were rising and coming up in society at that time. Aristocracy was declining, and there was a growing importance given to science and technology. Now, all these kinds of social and political changes are happening in Russian society at that time, and all of them find a place in the book too. But the author does not take any stance. He doesn't try to take a stance on what is good or what is bad. He just tries to present it as it is. So even his characters come across in the same way. They don't seem to take a strong stance in anything. They just seem to be confused and overwhelmed around all that is happening around them. Interestingly, also, one more thing which is explored in the novel are love and relationships. So it explores various forms of love and relationships, including romantic love, familial love, and friendship. The characters struggle with their feelings and desires, especially Bahezrao, and how his nihilistic views prohibit him from displaying any romantic love. And the novel portrays the challenges of forming and maintaining relationships. And one more thing which was a part of all of Turgenev's novels are the nature and the natural world, which always found a place in his book. He felt nature has a beauty and power to it. So the novel features several scenes that depict the beauty and power of nature and explore the relationship between humans and the natural world. The characters are often shown reflecting on the natural world and its impact on their emotions and thoughts. So I read a book which is, so later on, after I completed my novel, I found a Norton critical novel edition of the novel, which had something very, very, interesting analysis of Turgenev's writing. And I wanted to share it with you all. So this is what I'm reading out directly from that, critical analysis. So in Russia, in the land of all kinds of revolutionary and religious maximalism, a country of self-immolation of the wildest excesses, Merezhkovsky declared. So Merezhkovsky is also another Russian author and a famous literary critic. Turgenev, after Pushkin, is almost the sole genius of measure and therefore a genius of culture. For what is culture if not the measuring, the accumulation and preservation of values? To Russia's maximalists like Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, Tolstoy with his cultural iconoclasm, his desire to save Russia, peasant style, holy fool style, and Dostoevsky with his contempt for the godless, rotten West, and his conception of Russia as the only god-bearing people. So Merezhkovsky opposes the minimalist Turgenev, Russia's true conservator, Pushkin's legatee, who first revealed to Europe that Russia is also Europe. So when compared to Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, who had their huge, cultural emphasis and religious emphasis, and who were maximalists, Turgenev comes across as this minimalist in his ideas, in his thoughts, in his, in his taking a stance to, which was something which usually the European writers did. And that is how he showed that Russia is also Europe. So says Merezhkovsky. So if the
What
Russian
is a
Revolution,
one second? What does he mean by a maximalist? What is that?
so maximalist, basically what they're trying to say is, so like as per what we read, Anna Karenina also. So her whole fall and everything is shown because she has another relationship, right?
Okay.
A relationship apart from what she had with the husband.
Yeah.
So what he's trying to say is that always Tolstoy and these people always showed a very extreme stand, a maximal, maximum.
Okay.
A maximum punishment or a maximum thing, So they held very high moral values.
Okay.
And they had a lot of contempt for anyone who did not believe in God or who did not
fit into that idea which that. What is cultural iconoclasm? As in they hold their culture in some kind of
Yes.
like they revere Russian culture.
Correct.
Okay. So Turgenev was challenged that, right? That's what they're trying to say.
He didn't challenge that. He didn't give importance to that in his writing.
Okay, yeah, fine.
Yeah. So
he was kind of moving away from that whole lot of things, all those traditional and cultural things. He never mentions anywhere about God or any of those things. So he was more forward looking, maybe that
not
way.
Not God only, Suchi. He says culture. The culture.
Was.
So he's maybe through his characters, he's moving away from traditional Russian
exactly. Traditional
way of life.
Russian culture. Way of life. That is
correct.
the thing.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, got it.
So Gita says it's usually not prepared to compromise on their views. Yeah. So Gita is having a bad throat. Hi Gita, glad you could join us today despite your bad throat. So yeah. So exactly, so that's what he wasn't like. Turgenev did not do this. So he did not try to fight for his views, or he did not try to show that Russia is great or something like that, which was something very new to the West when compared to Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, which is why I think probably they liked him for that reason. And so again, I'm continuing with that same essay. So if the Russian Revolution of 1905 went awry, Merezhkovsky argues it was because there was too much Tolstoy and Dostoevsky in it and too little of Turgenev. So Turgenev, no less than Dostoevsky, was aware of the destabilizing forces in the individual and society. Yet nothing was more nearly anathema to him in art and culture than maximalism. He did not want to take that very maximum stance, that is what they are trying to say here, I feel. He found his commanding poetic in the life of nature, a quiet and slow animation, a leisureliness and restraint of feelings and forces, an equilibrium of health in every individual creature. That is nature's very foundation, its unalterable law. That is what maintains it and keeps it going. So I think we can see this to some extent in Fathers and Sons too. And that's, I think maybe that is what puts us off from his writing in a way. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he doesn't take a stand. That is
He
my.
doesn't take a stand, so it's a very leisurely, there's a restraint of feelings and forces. We want our characters to have some feeling and some force, some stand for something, do something, right?
No, not really that. There's confusion.
Yeah.
Not having feeling is also a stand. That is okay. But his characters don't. They don't know what they want.
Yeah, no, they take a stand. They have an idea, but then they're not strong enough to follow that idea also. They are confused in midway, and then they do something else. Then they are
Yeah,
confused
that's
in that too. They do something else.
if they take a stand, but they are not convinced
Sticking to
that.
it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
correct,
Yeah, their feelings don't allow them to. Um, which means that they are not actually committed to that stand. That is no stand, right?
correct.
You
Which is
take a
what
stand,
I
but you're
think.
not able to stick to it. That
Yeah.
means that is not a stand.
So that was how Turgenev was there in his normal life also. It is a depiction of him.
Yeah,
That's how he
possibly.
was, and that's how he's tried to show his characters.
I don't know whether it is willful. I feel it. I,
Ah,
I feel
yeah,
it has just happened like that because he's
correct.
not able to have a clear, again, idea of what his character should be. Is that
Mm,
very? I don't know. I'm not sure
yeah.
whether he's
Like
not
what
able
you
to.
said, even I felt that, I thought maybe now in future, probably we read so much and act as if he has willfully done it, but we don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like here because
uh,
if you do that willfully, that also comes through. And I have read books where the characters are designed as confused people, and that is fine.
yeah.
But here it seems
Even in Anna Karenina,
hmm,
what is the name of that fellow with whom she has the relationship?
Vronsky.
Ah, yes.
Hmm,
He
hmm,
comes across in certain ways like this confused being, right?
hmm,
He
hmm.
doesn't take a proper stance. He doesn't know what he's doing. He wants
Correct.
to be with her, but he doesn't want to be with her. And
He wants to be with her, but he doesn't want to cut himself off from society. He
correct.
enjoys that also.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that there is clarity.
there's clarity.
There's
Exactly.
clarity. So,
Mm,
but here the characters don't seem confused. The author seems confused.
exactly.
That was the problem with the book. That's all.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know.
I feel he's like forced them to do things. Like Bazara also, I felt
Hmm.
that situation where he suddenly kisses that girl, it felt very artificial to me.
It was so unnecessary. And then
It was
he's
so
not convinced about the duel, but yeah, I'll go along with it. Is it that easy? He's not
yeah,
convinced that he should go for that duel, right, with Pavel.
correct.
Ah.
Correct.
But he's okay. Let's go. You want to do it? Yeah, let's do it. Is it
Correct.
that casual? It didn't ring true at all. His
Yeah.
attitude.
Right.
Bazaro was a very confusing and confused character.
Mm. That's what his character development and depiction is definitely not good.
Hmm,
And his
hmm,
plotting also is definitely, there's not enough story over there to write.
The story, yeah. See, the basic skeleton was there, but I feel he didn't do justice to
Yeah.
it. Elena.
Correct.
Anyway,
This I was just reading this book, The Man Who Died Twice. Have you read that?
no, I haven't.
You know the book, right? What I'm talking about, the Thursday Murder Club and all that.
Yeah,
You must have heard of it, right?
I've seen. I started reading Thursday Murder Club, but then I just
Yeah.
gave it
So
up.
in the last page, the author actually he writes about his editors and that, and he thanks them all, and then he mentions in one place how his editor would always keep telling, do you think your character would have actually done this? Do you think your character would have actually told this?
Right.
I think somebody should have asked Turgenev that.
I think editors were not very active at that point. I remember we discussed this
Yes.
even when we were doing
Yeah.
Anna Karenina. The
Correct.
authors were just allowed to pretty much get away with whatever they wrote. Even
Why,
Dr.
if there would
Zhivago.
have been an editor,
Mm.
then Dr. Zhivago would have been something
Exactly.
very different.
Exactly. That's exactly what Dr. Zhivago. All these books, I don't think they did much editing at all.
Yeah,
So
true.
they just that is something that could have helped.
Mm.
So
I think there's a little bit more of this essay.
yeah, let's go through it.
Turgenev's Poetics of Nature, which conflicts with his tragic vision of human existence, did not lead him away from turmoil, conflict, ambiguity, but it led him to depict reality differently from Tolstoy or Dostoevsky. The art of Turgenev is in restraint, understatement, the capacity to perceive and embody the greatly significant, whether social, psychological, philosophical, or historical, in the everyday text and subtext of character and moment. A poet must be a psychologist, but a secret one. Turgenev wrote in a letter to K.D. Leontief in 1860 in one of his most revealing statements about his own artistic method. He must know and feel the roots of phenomena, but represent only the phenomena themselves in their flowering and fading. Remember that however subtle and complex the inner structure of some tissue in the human body, the skin, for example, nonetheless, it is comprehensible and homogeneous. To present the appearance of simplicity and homogeneity, yet in fact reveal the full complexity and variety of individual and social consciousness. Herein lies a cardinal feature of Turgenev's art. Turgenev's artistic method derives, in part at least, from his heightened awareness of the usually concealed relationship between surface manifestation and internal reality in the life and consciousness of people. So this is something which keeps coming again and again in most of the reviews which I read, Western reviews of Turgenev's book. So they keep saying that he has a duality of thing. You feel something inside, but you behave in a different way. The surface manifestation of is usually different. And that is what he tries to bring into his method. And that's his artistic method. Okay. So these were some books, some quotes from the book, Fathers and Sons, which I found interesting. So we sit in the mud, my friend, and reach for the stars. As we all know, time sometimes flies like a bird and sometimes crawls like a worm. But people may be unusually happy when they do not even notice whether time has passed quickly or slowly. It's all romanticism, nonsense, rottenness, art. The fact is that previously they were simply dunces and now they've suddenly become nihilists.
This is a good one.
This is when they speak of the younger generation.
Yeah, this I liked.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
He has no faith in principles, only in frogs. So this is when he goes and catches frogs for
Yeah.
so that's the thing. We act by virtue of what we recognize as beneficial. At the present time, negation is the most beneficial of all, and we deny.
When did this? I don't remember this one.
I think this is when Bazarao says, like, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
He was talking to both of them, to the father and
fits.
brother. Yeah. Death is something ancient, but it comes fresh to each of us. The man who has not seen such tears in the eyes of his beloved does not know the height of happiness to which, with mingled joy and gratitude and modesty, a woman can attain. Do you remember this one?
Yeah, sort of.
I think this was when when he thinks back of his wife. There's this scene of Nicola, right? He thinks back to his first wife who passed away or something. And
when he's out in the garden or some such thing, then he's thinking about it.
When he's thinking about it and about Arkadi's mother and all that. That was the scene. And so this was that Norton Critical Edition was the first thing which I did. And in fact, a lot of the things which I got about his fight with Tolstoy and Dostoevsky and other things was from this course on Russian classical literature in great courses.
Okay.
And the rest are our usual suspects, Cliff Yates and yeah.
So good. We are done with. I'm still glad I read it.
Yeah.
Because I would have always, wanted to read it. What's in that? But so
Correct.
good. One author.
Especially for me, it felt very, I think probably, after reading Tolstoy and all, I came with a lot more expectation than
Right.
what is right.
Yeah.
So that could
This
also,
is totally different from Tolstoy, no? I mean, it
yeah,
is
completely.
it is completely different. Tolstoy, Chekhov, and this Dostoevsky. I mean, we are used to these people more than
Yeah.
this
The
way.
length
That
of
is
it
why.
to begin with.
Yeah.
I was surprised that it's such a short book.
Yeah,
And,
true.
it was very different. Yeah.
So now for the next read, both The Siege and The Fifth Child, both of them are tied up. I think
Okay,
on
okay.
Facebook it's 2 votes, and on the email also I think it's 2 votes.
Okay. So
So
which one are we taking up?
I was just suggesting that maybe we can do The Siege first in April. And shall we do The Fifth Child in May? May might be, for many of them, it might be exam
Travel.
season and travel.
Yeah, exam and travel. Yeah.
So Fifth Child is a
Yeah.
very, very easy, simple, quick, fast, light read.
Fine. Yeah, it works
Fine.
then.
Yeah, we'll do that. That is
But a
actually a
very
good idea.
disturbing reader.
Disturbing. Disturbing reminds me, I finally read The Lottery after so long. Shirley Jackson. Remember when we read
Oh,
Haunting on Hill House and you
Yeah.
you guys had said that's another weird, disturbing short story.
Correct. How is it?
Very shocking. You
Oh.
remember they stone, they choose a family member and they have a lottery system. You remember Shirley Jackson when we did?
Yes. I remember now. The lottery system. As soon as you said lottery,
Yeah,
I
that I
correct.
finally got around
Oh
to
my
reading
God, that was a very disturbing,
it. Yeah, right.
extremely disturbing short story.
Okay, so yeah, let's
Yeah,
keep
finally.
disturbing for me. Yeah, finally. It was at the back of my mind to like read that for so long. And then it's a hardly a half, not even half an hour read, but I just didn't get around to it. Anyway, so we go with the
Yes. So shall we do
Siege.
that itself? Siege,
Yeah.
Sarath actually swears by it. He says the book is extremely good. He's already read it.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so that is reassuring.
yeah, Fifth Child, I've already read it and I've loved it. I've read it 2 times, I think, already.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Let's
Now we need some reassurance after Father and
Yes,
Son.
after Fathers and Sons. I was telling Sarath the same thing. We are after going to read some 10 reviews at least of a book before we choose it.
It's okay. We'll never know, actually. You'll never know.
You'll never
We'll
know.
never know. That is
You
the
never
thing. Yeah.
know. So it's
Yeah.
all right. I think once in a while, it's fine. You can't read only the good ones.
Correct.
You have to
Yeah,
read
yeah.
the not so good ones to actually appreciate the good ones.
The good ones,
So
exactly.
It's all right. Yeah, it's okay.
True. Oil, the other 2 books which I mentioned in that, in which I think the other one was Oil. Oil is also supposed to be very
Oil.
good.
Okay.
That's also Sarath has read it. So he's always said that that's quite a good book. But maybe next time, later on, there's so many rejects. I think our list of rejects keeps growing.
Yeah, we should actually, I think maybe the last 2 months or 3 months of the year, we should just keep for recycling the rejects.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah,
Fifth Child has been rejected so many times now.
Which one?
Fifth Child.
Fifth Child. Okay.
Yeah, at least I think 3 times I've tried to push it into the it's never come.
No, we'll read it in May.
Yeah, we'll read it in May. Yeah, I personally found the book very, very, I don't know. It's probably a very unrealistic and a very different kind of a story, a scary story, but I think it's a very relatable one.
Okay.
For many parents, maybe. You can find it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember reading the synopsis.
Even I have read the synopsis. No, we discussed.
Now
We
I
discussed.
remember.
Yeah.
I've read the sequel to it also. The second book is called Ben in the World. And it's not great like Fifth Child because maybe because you already know what is happening. But even that's a very good book. Both are very good. Both are worth a read.
Very good. Let's.
Okay, great. So that's
okay.
Yeah.
Chalo, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much everybody for joining in. Meghlai, Geeta, and I don't know who's this iPhone. Thanks, Meghlai. Thanks for coming in. Hope you liked the discussion.
Yeah.
Chalo, good. Let's meet
Chalo, bye.
next
Yeah, it
time.
was very interesting to hear everybody's discussion. I mean, I didn't get to read the book. Then I was like, okay.
Okay.
I got the proper synopsis now from everybody.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank
Had
you.
a nice time. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, Geeta. Bye.